From the New York Times, new allegations emerge against Ronny Jackson as White House digs in. Washington, Dr. Ronny L. Jackson, the White House physician nominated to lead the Veterans Affairs Department, provided such a large supply of Percocet, a prescription opioid, to a White House military office staff member that he threw his own medical staff into a panic. When it could not account for the missing drugs, according to a summary of the questionable deeds compiled by the Democratic staff of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, a nurse on his staff said Dr. Jackson had written himself prescriptions, and when caught, he simply asked a physician assistant to provide him with the medication. And at a Secret Service going-away party, the doctor got intoxicated and wrecked a government vehicle, according to the summary. The two-page document, distributed by committee Democrats, fleshes out the three categories of accusation: prescription drug misuse, hostile work environment, and drunkenness that threatened to derail President Trump's nominee. Committee staff members say the summary details the testimony of 23 current and former colleagues of Dr. Jackson, many of whom are still in the military. An aide to Senator John Tester of Montana, the top Democrat on the committee, said each allegation included the document was based on information provided by two or more individuals. The new details come as White House officials on Wednesdays ratcheted up their public defense of Dr. Jackson, calling the charges of workplace misconduct outrageous, even as new episodes of questionable conduct surfaced. Dr. Jackson told reporters at the White House that he had no idea where that is coming from, but categorically denied the car accident. "I have not wrecked a car, I can tell you that," he said, adding that we're still moving ahead as planned. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, told reporters earlier Wednesday afternoon that Dr. Jackson had been the subject of at least 4 background investigations, including the FBI during his time at the White House, which dates to 2006. None, she said, had turned up areas for concern, and Dr. Jackson had drawn praise from colleagues and presidents in each administration he worked for. None of those things have come up in the 4 separate background investigations that have taken place, she said. Referring to recent allegations, there's no area of concern that was raised for Dr. Jackson specifically. But when pressed, Miss Sanders says she could not comment on the credibility of specific charges. "These are news," she said. "I can only speak to some of the personal accounts that those of us have, as well as the records that we have, that are sustained through a very detailed and thorough background investigation process." Among those new charges that she did not address, during an overseas trip by the Obama administration in 2015, Dr. Jackson went out drinking, came back to the delegation's hotel, and began banging on the door of a staff member's hotel room. According to an account shared with Mr. Tester, the noise was so loud that the members of the Secret Service came to see what was happening, and warned Dr. Jackson to be quiet so he would not wake the president, who was staying nearby. The episode was first reported by CNN. On another trip during the Barack Obama presidency, White House staff members reached out to Dr. Jackson for medical reasons, but found him passed out in his hotel room after a night of drinking. Tester's aides said the staff member took the medical supplies that they were looking for without waking Dr. Jackson. The document prepared by the Democratic staff of the Veterans Affairs Committee paints a picture of a medical office that was casual with the prescribing and distribution of drugs, but terrorized by a mercurial boss quick to anger. According to the summary, interviewed staff members described Dr. Jackson as the most unethical person I have ever worked with, flat out unethical and incapable of not losing his temper, among other charges. The document includes allegations that Dr. Jackson regularly distributed Ambien, a prescription sleep aid, to the members of the White House staff and the members of the news media flying on long overseas trips, as well as another prescription drug to promote wakefulness. It says that the committee was told that the physicians working with Dr. Jackson felt uncomfortable and refused to be a part of the loose dispensing of drugs to current and former White House staff members. It also states that Dr. Jackson had also had private stocks of controlled substances. The document says that the panel received testimony that the White House medical unit had questionable record keeping for pharmaceuticals, and that the community was told that Dr. Jackson would often account for pills only after distributing them. Members of the committee continued to investigate the claims, but by Wednesday evening the tone had shifted in the Senate. "I see no realistic path forward for this nomination," said Senator Rich Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut and member of the committee. "He cannot lead this agency dragging all that baggage into the VA, even if he could have compensated for his lack of experience. Republicans were not ready to defend him." And I think what the committee is doing right now is a proper due diligence. It's both Republicans and Democrats, said Senator Dan Sullivan, Republican of Alaska. Dr. Jackson had been scheduled to testify before the Senate panel on Wednesday, but it's the top Republican and Democrat announced on Tuesday that the session would be postponed to allow more time to investigate the claims. Before the allegations about the Percocet emerged, Senator Johnny Ickson of Georgia, the committee's chairman, said that he intended to hold a confirmation hearing for Dr. Jackson, but would first need to receive documents that he and Mr. Tester requested on Dr. Jackson's time at the White House. To speculate on the nominee's fate before them, he said, would be unfair. He deserves a hearing, and he's going to get it, Mr. Ickson said. An aide to Mr. Tester said on Wednesday that the other former colleagues of Dr. Jackson had reached out to the committee to share stories since the details of its investigation became public. The White House pushback, both in public and behind the scenes, was targeted towards the general allegations and not specific episodes, many which appear to have occurred during the Obama administration. Mark Short, the White House Legislative Affairs Director, told reporters that the White House would be requesting a confirmation hearing. Dr. Jackson told reporters in brief comments on Tuesday that he was looking forward to testifying to report the charges against him. Mr. Short pushed back against the assertions that Dr. Jackson had casually doled out prescription drugs. Every year they come in and they do a review of the White House physician office on things like prescriptions. Mr. Short told reporters that, and every year they've said that he's totally in compliance with what he's been prescribing. On Capitol Hill, some Republican senators worried that Dr. Jackson was being asked to account for anonymous accusations that had not yet been fully vetted. Others were still awaiting access to more detailed charges collected by Mr. Tester and others on the Veterans Affairs Committee. For us to hound somebody out just because somebody can make an accusation strikes me as unfair. Senator John Cornyn of Texas, the number 2 Republican, said before the Democratic memo emerged. Mr. Cornyn defended Dr. Jackson's reported distribution of Ambien and other drugs during long trips as nothing out of the ordinary. He said that because Dr. Jackson was a doctor, it was not a problem that he distributed the drugs, even without writing a prescription. On overseas travel, yeah, sure, people take Ambien to help them transition through time zones. He said, it's pretty common, I'm led to believe.